Yo, what is up guys? Guido here, back again with another mini bike video. And are you guys trying to stop your mini bike and it just won't stop? Do you guys need more braking power? And if you guys answer those questions, this video is for you. I'm gonna show you guys how to install a big brake mini bike brake kit on your mini bike. So let's just get straight into the video. So as a lot of you know that have been watching me, this is my new Motovox. I stretched it 8 inches here with the Minibike Larry stretch tabs. I've done a lot of work to this thing. I got it powder coated, did a bunch of stuff to it, and pretty much this is going to be my drag show mini bike. And obviously something that's going to be going pretty quick. I'd like to spend quite a bit of money and get this motor a 9,000 revving beast. So it's going to be moving pretty quick. I am going to need to stop it. So as you've probably seen from my other mini bike hydraulic brake install video I did a while back, I'll link it in the top right up here. You can pretty much see that's just a smaller basic doodlebug, stock mini bike Monster Moto straight direct bolt up brake kit for your regular brake rotor. And to be honest, it works pretty well. It locks up the wheels. It's pretty decent, but if you're doing anything like real getting at it and going pretty quick, you're going to want to upgrade to something like this that's a little bit bigger. Now this, I'll try to link in the description. There's like so many of other brands that this goes under, but it's pretty much just your basic like quad, 125cc quad brake, hydraulic brake setup. And I'm going to be installing this up on my stretched Motovox mini bike right here. Now this is, like I said, the Minibike Larry stretch tab. So these stretch tabs are like perfectly designed for this brake style. So you'd have to just measure your the whole distance to figure out what kit you can actually buy and go with. But like I said, I'm using the Minibike Larry stretch tabs here, so that distance is perfect for this distance. And I'm gonna pretty much show you guys how to install them. So now, like I said, kind of with every other mini bike, it's going to vary and it's going to be very different. Or if you're doing a custom build, you'll have to make, a custom brake mount and stuff like that. But I did this size because it mounts straight up on there. So I'm pretty much going to show you guys how to exactly get this installed. Now, something that's a little bit different about this brake kit, it did come with a black hydraulic brake line. I swapped that out with a silver brake line so it matches my throttle cable and kind of matches the design that I'm going with on this bike here. So that I just did that off camera because it's kind of irrelevant. But anyways, we're gonna get to installing this brake setup right here. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I think, is I'm actually gonna install the brake lever first. And since I changed out this brake line, it's pretty easy. I don't have it on there tight or anything yet. So I'm just gonna mount that all up there and then install the line last once I'm done, because I am gonna have to modify this brake caliper to fit with this slick in this amount of clearance that I have here. All right, so pretty much like I said, this I already had all off, so this can come off pretty easily. All it needs to do is just loosen up, and then I can go ahead and mount it on top of the handlebars there. All right, so now I can go ahead and get on the bike here and see exactly how I'm gonna wanna mount this thing. Just like that, and she's on there nice and strong. She ain't going nowhere, and yeah, perfect. That's exactly how I wanted it to be on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on installing the brake caliper. All right, and now with this brake caliper, this is already loose as well, like I stated before, because I put a new hydraulic line on here. This also helps too when you're wanting to install it. You don't got to really fight with it. So now this is going to get mounted up right on here. Now I already know this is going to be a little bit of work here because I am going to have to cut the spacer in between this wheel so I can get it aligned properly, because obviously this brake isn't meant to go on this bike here. I'm going to pull this out here and you can kind of see where it sits. So I'm going to grind quite a bit of this down here so then it can have enough clearance between there, but you can kind of see how that's going to mount up right there. And it looks like I'm going to just have to grind down kind of that edge right there, which isn't too big of a deal. I'm used to always doing custom stuff, of course, so it's not too crazy for me. And yeah, I'm going to see how I can kind of get this mocked up, and if I need to cut my spacers or anything, or if I should just leave it, or how I'm going to do it, but I will figure it out right about now. Alright, so I have my impact gun here with my 17mm socket and my wrench on the bolt there. I'm going to impact this loose. just like that. So I can get that nut off and get this wheel off, so then I can get the brake mounted on there, and then I will cut my spacers accordingly on pretty much how I want to have it mocked up. I think that brake spacing is going to be as much as I really want to go for it. And then I think the rest I'm just going to be able to kind of change the geometry of how it's going to fit in there. So now that's off. Now what I can do is set this thing to the side and see kind of where the brake is going to go when I mock it up here. So now with the brake, this all being off, you can kind of see, you can do it right up against it really if you wanted to, but you're going to have to cut that spacer and have that wheel go way, way over, and then your chain and stuff isn't going to be in line. Unless you have an engine slider and you're able to slide it way, way over. But then if you do that, then you're kind of running out of foot peg room, because with the Predator 212, your blower cover gets pretty close. So then you have less foot peg room unless you extend that. But on this frame, I didn't extend it. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put my spacers in there so it'll be right about there, which would be perfect. And then I might have to just cut just the tiniest bit off of this spacer here, where hopefully the chain will still be in line. I can just use like a clutch spacer or something to get it in line, or even like an engine spacer. It's really not too big of a deal. But the first thing I'm going to do before I actually get this mounted up, I already know I'm going to have clearance issues with this wheel. So if I just pick this thing up, and you can see how this mounts on here with my brake pads, you can see it'll mount up a little bit higher. It's pretty much right up against that wheel. So all of this area right here is pretty much going to need to get cut off right here, just because there's not really a lot that goes on here. It's just metal, so that's not really too big of a deal. But I'm going to need to cut all that off just for clearancing. You guys probably won't have to do it, but I'm going to have to, because the way this drag slick is with this big brake kit here. So all right, I'm gonna say that's probably pretty good. Still tons of material there, but it's just enough where I think it'll clear. Thinking that's gonna do it right there. All right, and check it out. You can see with the grinding that I did, there is just a perfect amount of clearance in between there. It's absolutely perfect. Now, it's not going to go all the way to the side like this, because you can see how much distance there is on this side. It's not obviously going to be aligned. But once I add my spacers and stuff and adjust, you know, the spacers on here and cut them shorter and stuff of where it's going to be, it'll be perfect. But you can see it's butt up against the frame there, so it's level and stuff. I just wanted to see the height of how it's going to mount and, you know, how close it was to the brake. And I'm thinking that's pretty good. So I'm going to throw some paint on there real quick and make sure, you know, all this the bare metal and stuff is all sealed. Start off really light. I want this to dry on there pretty well. I have my wheel and everything all bolted up on here. There's no spacers, so I can move it side to side, so I'm able to see the distance that I need to measure and recut my spacers here, because I'm going to need to cut this one either shorter, longer, or whatever, so then I can get this positioned exactly how I want to have it. And like I stated from the beginning, I don't want to have this thing over too much or either too far, because then what's going to happen is that chain isn't going to be in line. And I have a little bit of adjustment that I can do. But if I do anything crazy where it's all the way over to this side, then I gotta adjust the chain and all that a lot. So what I'm gonna do is I have spacers for this brake, so I know where that's gonna kind of put it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install it, put all my spacers and everything, and get that kind of where it needs to be, and then I'll be able to judge, like, hey, I'm gonna need, you know, the spacer here and this and that, and then I can measure how long it needs to be for this current setup. Put my other washer that I'm going to use on the other side, and then my little spacer deal that I got going on here, and then you can kind of see the spacing, the amount of thread that I'm going to get just from this here. I might not use that washer on the inside. We're going to kind of see how that's going to mount, if that's really enough threads for this to bite onto. I'm sure it'll be fine, but just in case, I kind of want to make sure this has got, you know, enough room to bite on and stuff like that. And it looks like that'll work. I might actually remove that spacer on the inside there, the little washer, just because I kind of want a little bit more bite on that thing. So I'm going to remove that one. and just put this one in here along with just the spacer, just so you can kind of see here, just so I have a little bit more bite. I don't necessarily really have to run a washer on the outside there, but I want to because I don't want it to mess up my paint, and it's just, I feel like a little bit better of a thing to do instead of not running one. All right, and that looks to be pretty much perfect on there. It looks like it's gonna work pretty well. I kind of just have that tightened in the general area where it's gonna be, just hand tight, but it's on there, it's not moving. You can see there's perfect distance between the wheel and the tire, or the tire and the brake caliper. It might be hard to see on the camera, but there's quite a bit of distance there from where I grounded it down. So I think that's gonna work. I think that's gonna be perfect. Now, all that there is to do is just cut this spacer that amount of distance right there. So I can cut that and then put some more on that side. So then it's spaced the way I need it to be. All right, so you can check it out. We got our spacer made. All I had to do was just cut it down a little bit, and I just went and repainted it silver, so we got that made. So that's perfect, and that's in position exactly where I needed it up for my spacing in between here that we measured, so we could make sure that brake caliper was 100% aligned and it's not dragging side to side, or either it's not moving the wheel at all. So since we measured it, we measured the perfect distance that we needed, and we cut and trimmed it. So now this rotor is perfectly in line with the caliper. And then also on this side, I actually didn't have to really make a lot of modification. I just put a little washer in there to make sure it was the same spacing I pretty much needed. And you can see the way that sprocket is pretty much going to be 100% in line with the motor, where the clutch is going to be. And you can see the brake is completely all installed on there. So the whole rear wheel's all tightened up. My bolts I used, like I said, I just used the bolts with the washers on it actually, up against my frame here, and then my spacers, and then it just threads directly into the caliper. So you can see that this is all nice and tight. It's not touching side to side, and there's tons of clearance right there from the caliper to the tire there, because we did our clearancing. So now all we have to do is pretty much just install our brake line. All right, so I got my brake line here, and it's gonna get mounted just like that, how it was factory. I have my bolt that goes through there, and also the two washers with a little bit of gasket material on there, which will 100% seal it. And then you just have to connect it just to down there. I mean, it's so simple. All right, so you can see everything's all installed. My brake lever's installed. Also the master cylinder. All my brake line is installed and routed the way I wanted it to. I just zip tied it in certain places right there. It doesn't look the best because you can kind of see the zip ties, but once that motor's on there, you're not going to be able to see them. I just want it on there so it's not flapping in the wind and stuff like that. And then the caliper's all installed. Like I said, I had to grind it down there, painted it, made sure the spacing was right. All that's all good and installed on there, all nice and tight. It ain't going nowhere. And like I said, the rest of the brake line's on there. So now, since I had to, you really won't have to do this. Usually they come filled. You might have to bleed them because sometimes there's air bubbles in them from the factory, but I had to take the whole brake line off, so there's no fluid in this. So now I got to top it off with fluid and bleed the brakes. Now I actually have a full video up in the top right on how to do this, so you can just click that. But if not, I'll show a little bit of it in here. But pretty much you got to take off the top cap on this master cylinder here. All right, so I got the brake fluid. I'm just going to pour it in. Now what I'm going to do, since it's topped off with fluid, I'm going to put this cap back on. And I'm just going to try to hold it down with my hand. And just press the brakes. Pretty much just, you got to do this for quite a while. You'll be out here doing this for a little bit, because you'll need to get all that fluid in there. Slowly, slowly, slowly press through this hydraulic line here, which then it'll go into the back brakes. And would you check it out, I got my lines all connected. Like I said, I went and bled the brakes. I kind of did the rest off camera because I mean it took a long time, guys. You pretty much just have to fill it up here, pump it, pump it, pump it, pump it until it gets into the system, and then it's pretty easy. You just gotta crack the bleeder valve there, let a little bit of it squirt out, and then hold the handle down and then tighten it back up, and then you should build quite a bit of pressure. Maybe you have to do that maybe 1 to 2 more times after that, just so you can get it completely bled with no air in the system. Now you guys shouldn't have to do that at all, but I had to because I obviously put a new brake hose on and there was no fluid in it and nothing, so there was air obviously in the system that I had to get out and stuff like that. But it is all mounted up, it is all installed, my handle's all installed, It works perfect. It's really, really sensitive and really, really strong. I mean, this thing will lock up the rear wheels all day long. I know, of course, there's no weight on here and the bike is stretched and stuff, so of course it's gonna lock it up right there. But yeah, this thing definitely is gonna have a lot of stopping power than just compared to your regular Doodlebug brakes. And then plus two, it looks badass. It looks sick as hell. And I think that's a pretty cool factor that you can really tell, like, damn, that's the brake. That's the brake caliper, you know, it's so big and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely perfect for the stopping power. Definitely need it on a bike like this that's gonna be, you know, really going at it and stuff like that. So that is how you install a big brake kit on a mini bike. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe, and peace.